All right, lovely. Let's get stuck into it then. We have a session now on reimagining the banking customer experience, modern money tools to create financial well-being. Something that's actually quite close to my own heart, obviously being a neo-banker by trade. Finance and banking, in my opinion, will be all about hyper-personalization, all about customer experiences. And we have two excellent advocates to discuss this with you this afternoon. So this will be led by Matthew Morgan, who from Member Advantage. So Matthew's had a varied career across financial services and tech. Previously worked for one of Oz's largest banking and insurance groups. Which one was that, Matt? Suncorp. Yep. Big solid group there. Leads Member Advantage, delivering innovative closed-loop marketplace to over 1 million Aussies and Kiwis. So it enables a rich variety of lifestyle rewards and everyday savings. And the amazing Geraldine McBride from mywave.ai. Again, 25 years of executive leadership and board experience in FS, including time as president of SAP in North America. Geraldine's global expert in corporate evolution, co-founder and CEO of mywave.ai, which is a powerful AI enterprise intelligent agent that transforms the end-to-end customer experience by creating intelligent personalization, dynamic conversations, and context-relevant outcomes. So with that, can I ask you to welcome them to the stage?
Thanks. So just do a quick sound check. Can everyone hear us all right? Good. All right. Well, Matt and I are going to do a bit of a Mutt and Jeff act today, and you can work out who's Mutt and who's Jeff. So the introduction. So what we wanted to cover with you today are two key areas. One of them is productivity, and how do you improve productivity of employees in banks and insurance companies. And the second thing that we're going to cover today is then how do you then create what we call powering the everyday bank. And so if we think about what do these two topics have in common, we have created a technology that enables you to make actionable use of data. So if you think about all the things that you have invested in so far in your evolution as a bank or an insurance company, what has happened is that you've gone and put in layers of technology, and you'll probably have a mixture of old systems and newer systems and layers of technology. The problem is a lot of that data is sitting inside silos. A lot of that data is not actionable in real time. And there is actually other data that you could make useful that sits outside your organization. And so what we've done is we've created a technology that it makes all data available and actionable in real time, to make a process simple, seamless, and smart. So I sat on the board of one of the big four Australian banks for about 8 years. And we used to sit around the board table saying, how can we give bankers time back to be bankers again? And if you look at some of the things that are happening today and what MyWave is now replacing, we're actually replacing the whole notion of a form. Because what happened is we took a piece of digital paper and we put it into a digital form. But someone still has to capture the data from that form. The customer still has to fill out the 24-page form, as I did the other day, for my bank who's known me for 15 years, and could never get an hour of my time back. So the other challenge is talking to another bank in London recently, is that 70 to 80% of the data that's coming through in those forms, because you can't check the data as it's coming through, is wrong. And so we've got banks in the UK and also other banking customers in Australia where the process is taking longer, so by the time that form gets to the fulfillment centre, something in it isn't correct, hasn't been checked, and so it has to come back then to the customer for rework. So even though they've got robotic process automation like Pega, even though they've got workflows, it doesn't matter because those forms are now, the data is having to go back and forth to get right. And so a process which should take an hour takes up to 3 weeks, as we're finding with some of our customers. So we essentially are making all processes simple, seamless, and smart, and removing the data silos. And it doesn't mean that you're ingesting now data into something new. What we do is we map the end-to-end process, and let's say there's 20 steps in a process. What the MyWave system can do now is take that 25-step or 20-step process And using data, we can make that process shorter and simpler and make it data-driven so that you can get the same a regulatory approved process, but done in just a few steps. And we're doing this to free up banker time. So this is an example of a bank in Australia, a big bank, and we have saved 9,000 hours of banker productivity. 9,000 hours. So the ROI on this was very, very fast. And it was because we took a really complex process that went back and forth in the way that I've just mentioned before, and we've made it a 3-week process for activating BPay, and we even knew, the bank knew the customer had been KYC'd, it was just the process was taking too long. So that's a really important metric to sort of think about in terms of what can that banker do. Instead of being a data entry clerk, we've now freed those bankers up to be bankers to deepen the customer relationship. We're working with another major bank in North America who came to us and they asked us to do actionable use of data across an entire ecosystem. And this was for trade finance. And many of you in the room are probably involved in trade finance in one way, shape, or form. And so in this example, let's think about a world where we can eliminate paper. So all the data for trade finance actually exists in systems of record, often SAP systems. And so today what that customer has to do is print, to get the trade finance application done, print that information, scan it, send it to the bank then has 2 large data centers in China and India, then they have to then capture this, so this is the bank having to do essentially manual data capture, then creates the trade finance records, and then the trade finance process can occur. So we were asked, how could we make this process digital? So we said, well, sure, we can do that. The SAP systems are here. We can do the same thing with Oracle or any other system of record. MyWave then does intelligent data process orchestration. We can check that the data is correct. We then create now the new trade finance process, and we did this with SAP Signavio. In one morning, we actually mapped a process. We brought it up in the afternoon. We showed the customer how we would do that. We put dummy data into the process, and we can now start to show how we can make complex processes simple, seamless, and smart, and create an ecosystem. And so this is an example of this actually in demo. I've taken all the branding off it because I don't have permission to tell you which customer, but this is now the end customer. So this is like if you were a major customer like a Walmart or someone, and you're now wanting to create your trade finance request. I'm now taking my purchase order information. I'm looking at now creating that the data that needs to go into that trade finance. I'm taking it straight out of my SAP system in this instance, and I'm now confirming that that's correct. And I'm now able to send that across to that particular bank, and the banker then can review it. It's already been self-reviewed in terms of fraud, in terms of making sure that it hasn't got any fraudulent data in there. For example, I've inflated the price of the goods. If the product is short-shipped, let's say this is radiators, and I only receive 400 radiators instead of 500, it's very easy now in a data-driven way to be able to now just do a variation to the trade finance document to be able to then say, I'm actually going to pay now that for that because I only received 400, I didn't receive 500. So we've made everything actionable and data-driven. So there is no paper. Paper becomes the exception rather than the rule. And this is not futuristic thinking. These are things that we can do today, and we are doing with customers. This is another example of how we are doing this in home lending. So you can type or talk to technology, or you can press a radio button. It doesn't matter how we know these things. And what we're now doing is we're making active use of data. There is no form here. This is all information now coming directly into the MyWave system, and it's feeding from the banking systems and updating to banking systems, including external property data, including here external open banking data to be able to then enable the customer to do an affordability test in the process. The customer can then increase or decrease what they've got. The banking system is now then coming back with the affordability assessment, which can all be done in real time. We're then now, in principle, approving them for that loan, and now we're also asking them, would they also like to any help on saving money on broadband or any other banking or related banking product, which feeds very much nicely into what Matt will be talking about, which is now how banks are becoming parts of ecosystems to leverage the power of the bank. So we did some workshops yesterday where we did a lot more detailed demos. I've just given you literally some flavors of things today, but I have got like so much information for any of you who are interested in that, and I can take you through as much detail as you want in terms of how do we do this, how does it integrate into those systems, and how do we make these complicated older processes simple, seamless, and smart so that bankers and employees, or whether you're insurance clerks or bankers, can have these easier processes, and that also improves customer service, as you've seen on the home lending side. So we can do this both in the insurance arena as well as in the banking arena. So with that, what I'd like to do now is pass across to Matt, who's now going to talk about how we make that same data actionable in real time in an ecosystem, and it's a great privilege to welcome Matt. Over to you.
Thank you. Right, good afternoon, everyone. Lovely to be here. It's always great to be on the other side of the world after 2 years of not actually being able to travel. I did feel like left out there when you were doing the shout-outs around the world. I felt like the Antipodeans were left out, so I can't actually see where you are, but we're here. So, look, guys, great to be here. As I said, really excited to just share a bit of the Member Advantage story with all of you. And I think it's quite an interesting and quite a unique story in terms of that. So the actual, I think if I just take a step back and explain who Member Advantage is, Member Advantage is 20 years young. It's been building white-labelled platforms to deliver closed-loop loyalty, member benefits, member engagement, or employee benefits platforms for multiple different groups and organisations. And as you can see, we currently cater to just under 1.2 million adult Australians and New Zealanders, so it's roughly 10% of the population. So we've got quite an enormous purchasing power and spend as we see go through the platform annually. And the other interesting insight is we have an incredibly diverse range of members, from your high net worth medical and legal professionals all the way through to your everyday workers, union members. So it's given us a really interesting and rich data set to work from, but equally at the same time it presented quite an interesting challenge, because all these organisations were looking for white label solutions, but they were looking for something that was going to be diverse and different and allow them to differentiate the value that they actually provide to their members, because it's obviously a member-based organisation that we are providing these for. And so what we've done is we've spent quite a bit of time looking at where we were currently, I suppose, and I think I quite like Peter Wales' model here from MIT around the evolution of the business models in the digital era. And what you can see here is when we kind of ranked ourselves on this, we found that we were currently straddling the omni-channel supplier kind of brackets, and that did put our business model at risk, with Amazon and a lot of other, I suppose, those e-commerce platforms coming in, which were ultimately delivering quite a similar solution to what we were doing, which forced us to then relook at our business model. And I think the realisation for us was we needed to pivot to become an ecosystem driver. And so what we've done over the last 18 months is set about redesigning the platform. We've now built, it's an entirely modular microservice-based platform where we've decoupled the merchant side of things from the customer, which then gives us incredible flexibility in terms of how we actually put the program together. And what we found with doing that as well is it allowed us to add an additional dimension to the platform, which was we were heavily focused on delivering value to the customer, and it was actually coming at the expense to some extent to the merchants. And what we found that really added quite a bit of depth to our story was the fact that we were actually able to, working with all the key groups that we've got, allow these merchants, who often are quite in themselves are small businesses, to be able to onboard themselves into a digital marketplace with a ready-made huge customer cohort with all the digital tools and capabilities that they can't afford themselves. So the story and kind of the shift around that allowed us to really look at how we could actually then become that ecosystem driver, because we now had both a series of customers, we also had the technology powering the transactions, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second, and we've got the merchants on the other side. The challenge we found was that we had customer intent, we had retailer response, but we didn't have the brains in the middle to actually make that dynamic. And that's how I've been following MyWave now for about 8 years in terms of the technology that they've building. And what I found was that we couldn't actually shift to that ecosystem aspiration without actually having that brain at the center, that contextual memory, the ability to actually learn about customers, hyper-personalize the solution, derive the data that we were gathering around payments. I mean, the crazy thing is I now know when about 80% of those people get paid, whether it's fortnightly, monthly, in some instances with the mining companies, it's every 2 months, quite interesting. We know when people access the platform. We know what they're doing on the platform. We know, a Monday activity is typically related around household chores. A Friday activity is leisure, travel, entertainment. Mondays, they're logging in after 2 p.m. Fridays, they're logging in before 9 a.m. So all of this data and all these insights were great, but we couldn't actually then utilize them and make them hyper and personalized, which is where the partnership with MyWave really came into it. And as a result of that, the use case I wanted to share with all of you today is we're actually looking at how this technology now powers the everyday bank. And the solution that we've been tasked with building is actually looking at how one of the big four banks in Australia is looking at how they become that true everyday bank for their customers. So they understand that they look after their transactions, their deposits, their lending, but what they've found is that they're really struggling to differentiate the kind of that concept of value. For all of you, there's been a major Royal Commission went through Australia a couple of years ago. There was a massive investigation into banking practices, and I think in the last 12 months, I think is the first time there hasn't been any remediation reporting at annual results and AGMs from banks around different fixes. So they've come out of that cycle, they've come out of that remediation process, and now they're looking at how they kind of evolve that value conversation for their members. And so what we're doing is we're actually helping them build a bank-branded platform sitting natively within their own app network that then actually learns about each of their customers and serves up value-added solutions, be it discounts on groceries, be it travel, be it the ability to actually save money to then transfer that to pay off a credit card, to pay off a mortgage. And they're looking at it both from their debit side and their credit side. So it's quite an interesting story. And so as you can see, what we're doing here is the bank component is just one part of the platform. We're looking at loyalty rewards, we're looking at household needs, we're looking at shopping, travel, luxuries, payments and finance, and we're looking at how this fully integrates. And we're also wrapping a layer around points plus pay and a couple of other different engagement metrics, all powered by the MyWave solution there. So I just want to close with this slide, which is the ultimate helicopter view of what we're doing, and then I'll show you a couple of the demos of what we're building. So if you look at the center, what we've done is we've put the customer and the bank at the center, and then what we do is we've wrapped a series of offerings using the scale that we've got from our various suppliers to actually be able to then provide them with discounts around everyday necessities like groceries and fuel. We're seeing a massive rise, as the world is seeing, around inflation. We're seeing some of the data on our actual platform is telling us that we're seeing a 32% spend in groceries in the last 3 months alone on an average weekly spend for a family of 4. So we're seeing incredible cost of living pressures for quite a large contingent. The other thing the bank's looking at is then how do we connect in complementary offerings, curated experiences, and all of this is enabled by the data and insights, third-party connections, the enabling network, and some of the demonstrations we saw yesterday is quite exciting. With the Qualtrics stuff, I think there's a lot of richness in what we can do there. So there's definitely some stuff for us to think about. And that's all powered by kind of the technology platform that underpins it. And that allows us to look at audience, it looks at the engagement and intelligence, it looks at the marketplace, and then it looks at how we go about delivering the fulfillment. So this is our business model. This is ultimately what the banks are quite interested in. We can cut audience type by segments, by levels, by tiers. We can then look at using the MyWave process for onboarding engagement. We can also look at the MyWave process, as I was saying before, gives us the ability to look at hyper-personalisation. It looks at how we activate different segments. It also looks at how we can actually deliver that curated content when it's relevant. The marketplace itself, as I said, it's ready-made and it's modular, so we can plug in brands from anywhere around the world. We do that today. And we're actually able to then integrate different pricing mechanisms based on different tiers of customers and different forms of currency and all of that. And then ultimately the fulfillment, which is your from payment all the way through to delivery. It's all connected into the platform. So what I'd like to do is just show you a couple of really quick videos around some of that solutions we've built, and I'll explain the use case sitting behind each of them that the bank set that we had to build.
Sorry.
The first one that you can see here is they wanted hot offers. So they wanted offers that were exclusively discounted for the members, that were powered by the MyWave solution that learnt about what the member was looking for. In this instance, it's headphones. It looks at the offer. Then it gives them the different payment options. They place the order, and it's done. It's as simple as that. And so this is always on. It's always learning. It's learning how you're browsing. It's learning what you're looking for. And then it's using that to actually power it through. The second one here, you can see it tracks spend, it tracks saving. We also then have an e-store, which as it spans a whole range of products and services. It also spans a number of different brands. These are a large brand in Australia. It's kind of like Best Buy in America. As you can see, we've got a range of different products. We actually consume all the catalogues in the platform. We don't actually push customers out. We actually fulfill the entire solution all the way through. You can see, again, it's as simple as placing the order, choosing your payment method, and moving on from there. The third one that we're going to, and as you can see, if you just take a moment here, you can actually see it's embedded in the bank's app. So it allows you to actually, it allows the bank to actually really control the experience and deliver quite a seamless solution. But equally, the bank doesn't want to have to carry the liability and the headache of managing a balance sheet of points, managing a balance sheet of inventory delivery, which is what we do. Third thing here, shopping. So this is always on. This is your always on discounts. That was the use case. This was everyday living. In this instance, we're doing a combination of gift cards and cashback. It's all instant. You literally go to the checkout, you select the amount, you input it, you choose the payment method, and then you literally scan the barcode at the checkout. So it's all seamless, and it's all powered by the bank's banking solution, but it doesn't necessarily have to. And I think the last solution here is just to show you some of the different curated journeys that that we're working with MyWave to actually power. So you can see here, this is contextual. And it's relevant to the user. In this instance, I want to buy a laptop. You can see here that using the MyWave brain and journeys, it's, as Geraldine was saying before, it could be spoken, it could be typed. We can actually manage different products. So again, the bank wants to look at how it forms strategic relationships with certain suppliers as an income stream. And then the customer, in this instance, can go back. You can see we can look at things around beauty, we can look at things around pets. In this example, it's I want to buy a TV and a sound system, no problems. It then looks at things like living room, bedroom, so where is the actual, what are you actually trying to solve for? And that then allows you to look at the size and budget and all of those different types of things. So this is all native to the platform. This is all powered by the MyWave brain and tapping into the different catalogues that we've got to surface up these experiences. And as you can see here, it's really simple, really seamless. And it takes them straight to the checkout once they've chosen that, and they can complete it. And it all just sits within the app, and then they track the app from there. So those were just, again, as Geraldine said, there are a couple of really short examples to just give you guys a sense of what we're working on at the moment and what we're really excited about. So I think without any further ado, I think that brings the end of the piece, the formal piece of it, and we'll take any questions that anyone has. But yeah, thank you for your time today.
Thank you. And we have 2 minutes and 57 seconds.
Brilliant. Due to a somewhat small technology failure, I've lost the iPad. If you have any questions, you want to pop your hands up? Oh, no pressure. Gentleman at the front.
Thanks for the presentation. How do the banks handle the combines or the bundle business when the customer sends the item back? So,
Yes. There is, definitely. And to your point, there's an option to disappoint, right, at that point of return. So, and this is where the bank's been really, so we're actually doing a combination of the MyWave technology to help manage the, there's a whole series of contextual journeys built in around returns, refunds, pieces around breakages, delayed deliveries, all of that. So we're using MyWave. Again, as you can see, the contextual engagement there.
Yeah.
What we're also doing is we're working with some of our key retailing partners to have dedicated concierge teams to manage customer engagement, because we know that's a really important touch point. And that's one of the ones that the bank's really serious about making sure they get right, because they said it's all well and good to sell you the product, but the fulfillment and everything else is, and that's why they don't want to do it. That's why they've come to us.
Yeah, this enables banks to get into everyday banking in a very low-risk way. So the banks don't want the risk of that. But what the banks do want is the data, the relationship, and the benefit. And once we've got the data, the banks then have a benefit of making sure we can do context like the right banking product offered at the right place at the right time for the customer, because you understand context. And Matt showed you that two-sided network. So this particular bank example, they've got business banking customers and retail and banking customers. And so they're bringing them both onto the platform so they can do business with one another, facilitated by the power of the bank. But it's done in a low-risk way. So what I like about what Matt's done is with our relationship, they white label and manage everything for you. But what we're able to do is now bring this dynamic intelligence to the bank. And we can either make it tightly coupled, and, run behind your firewall, and it's managed by Matt's team, or we can make it loosely coupled where you're now accessing it through an API and you're punching out from your banking app into an external environment, but again, under all your security.
Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. Probably 30 seconds for a last question if there is one. Okay, wonderful, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much,
Thank
really
you very
appreciate
much.
your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.